Hi everyone, this is Heather Lottinen from the Flourish.Academy. It's our weekly Q&A. I have some questions in front of me, but if you have any additional questions that you would like to ask, please post it in the comments and I'll get to them if we have time. The first question comes from my friend Dana, and she says, blogging with a collage versus single photo uploads. Is it just a personal preference? Or could this impact SEO? Is there an easy or inexpensive, and then she puts in parentheses, free way to create collages for posting? There is an implication to this, Dana. So if you're posting one image, which would be a collage, several images inside of it, then according to Google, that just looks like one photo. That means one opportunity to add SEO tags and information, alt tags, etc. to that photo. However, it looks really nice. Okay, this is a two-part question. The first question, or the first part of the question is, does it impact SEO? And the answer to that is yes, it could. Because if you have multiple images, then you have multiple times that you can add SEO information to those photos. But collages look nice. Second part of the question is, how do you create collages? So there are applications like BlogStomp that do a really nice job, but that costs money and you had said free. There is a way to create custom collages inside of Lightroom. Hi Diana, I'm glad you're here. So you can go into Lightroom, into the print module, and do a custom page setup and say, set the dimensions at, I don't know, maybe 1,000 pixels wide, depending on the width of your blog or your website, might be 800 pixels by, say, 2,000 pixels, and you could create little frames that you drop your photos into inside of Lightroom. I have a video on that somewhere, but I think it might be in my Lightroom course. I'm not sure if it's on the channel. I'll check that out for you, but I created several blog templates for inside of the print module in Lightroom, custom templates, they're on the left, and I just use those. I can use those for collages. I use them, do you remember when I was doing detail shots from the weddings? The last photo on my wedding posts would have all of the details, and I was using a Lightroom template that I created in order to make that happen. And it's really quick and it's free. It's just some setup involved and know-how in terms of how to do that. But you could do a couple of different collages. So you could do sort of maybe a hybrid model where you do one photo that's really big or a couple photos that are large, full size, and then you do collages for maybe your details. That was my approach, so it was sort of the best of both worlds. I wouldn't recommend doing just one single collage with all of your photos in that one collage on your blog. I don't think that that's a good idea for SEO. Also, when you create collages, which can be quite beautiful, remember that you are potentially watering down your amazing photos with just okay photos inside of that collage. I would rather see your favorite images big and individual than in that collage. That is a personal preference. But in terms of SEO, yes, it can definitely impact it because it would be fewer images and fewer opportunities to put in those alt tags. I hope that helps. Diana asks, and Diana is here, can you explain the best way to maintain image resolution for print when exporting from Lightroom? And does the resolution change as the image is transferred to our phones or sent via text or email? Basically, what is the best way to electronically provide images that will print well for customers? If you are exporting for print and it is for customers, then yes, you want to do this in high resolution, which is in Lightroom in the export dialog. You do not resize to fit. That is unchecked, and you make sure that it's 300 pixels per inch, that's the resolution, and that the quality is set to 100 under the JPEG quality. I have some videos of this. I believe that they're in my course, and they're also on the YouTube channel for exporting for high res or for low res, because really when you're exporting, you just need to ask yourself a question. Is this for print or is it for email? Now, email would be low res. So if you're going to send your client maybe a sneak peek or a friend an image, and you want to do that in low res in email, that's fine. But I would never recommend sending high res photos via email because the attachments are simply too large. So the best way to deliver these images to your client without losing resolution, well, your question was, does the resolution change when you email? No, it doesn't change, but it does change the quality, not the resolution. Nothing is going to change the resolution once you export it from Lightroom. The quality will change when you upload it to something like Facebook or even Pixieset, because they will compress the image further, which could impact quality. Not to the point where you would see a degradation in quality or print, but it could. But the resolution would never change, just the quality. Okay, so when you export for print for a client, full size, 300, 100% quality, I would recommend delivering those either via something like Dropbox, which is free, Pixieset, which is also free. However, when you deliver via Pixieset with their free model and you include the high resolution photos, Pixieset does downsize them and compress them. When you have their paid option, it does not do that. So that's just something to be aware of. The best method for delivery to a client for a brand new photographer who does not wish to get involved in any of that might be something like Dropbox, where you upload the photos and then you send them a link to download. I think Pixieset is a fantastic option. I use it, I love it. But you just have to be aware that if you have the free version, when the client downloads the high resolution file, they do compress it. So there could be potential quality issues. If you don't want that to happen, then you're going to need to pay for the full version of Pixieset. I hope that helps. And then Alicia commented on that. What about JPEG Mini? Leanne uses that. Have you used it and had issues? All reviews I've read have been great. I am currently using, but most of my prints and client prints aren't larger than 11 by 13. I know a lot of people that use JPEG Mini and love it. I think it's a great option. However, I don't feel like I need JPEG Mini because I created my own. So I have an action which I turned into a droplet inside of Photoshop that makes the files smaller without hurting the quality. So when I finish with a session and I have all of the high resolution files retouched and perfect, ready to go, I take that entire folder, I put it on this droplet for Photoshop, and it makes the image, the file size, smaller without impacting the quality of the image. JPEG Mini is essentially doing the same thing. I'm not sure how much it costs. Can someone look that up maybe and post it for me? But I know a lot of people love it, so you can do that. I just did it myself in Photoshop. Sonia asks about your editing environment. Dark or natural light typesetting ? And I've talked about this in the past because the environment that you edit in can certainly impact your photos. For instance, if you have a lot of large windows in your office and your monitor, so your back is to the windows and the windows are coming in and hitting your monitor, then obviously when you have a really bright day versus a really dark day and the day has different color temperatures, that could impact how you see the images and ultimately how you edit them, because you're editing them based on what you see at that moment. So if you do have windows in your office, I would put the back of the monitor facing the windows so that you are facing the windows and the monitor is not. Also, some of these monitors have auto adjust in terms of brightness. You want to turn that off in order to keep it consistent. I also mentioned this in a previous video, but I had a friend that took this to the extreme and she painted her office 18% gray with no windows and a constant light source that was neutral in color, and she edited in that environment all the time for the sake of consistency. I don't think you need to go that far. I don't think it needs to be that extreme. Many of you have seen my office or been in my office. I do have 2 windows, but I am set back from those windows a little bit. My monitor is facing me and the wall, not the windows. And while the lighting does change in that environment, I haven't noticed that it's been drastic enough to really make a difference. So while that's something probably to think about, I wouldn't overthink it. You're probably okay. Diana asks, printing rights. She's asking about printing rights. If my clients get a flash drive of photos from me with no copyright, watermark, etc., then why are printing rights even necessary? If I need them, what should be included? Well, they're necessary because if that person takes those photos to get them printed, and this has happened multiple times at Walmart, I wish they wouldn't take their photos to Walmart, but when and if they do, Walmart will look at those photos and they will make a judgment. whether there's a copyrighted watermark or not, and they'll say, those look like professional photos. We're not going to print them unless you have a release. And you never want to put your clients in that situation where they're looking up your phone number, calling or texting you from Walmart saying, I can't get my photos printed because I don't have a release. So you definitely always want to provide a release for your clients without question so that they have it, so you don't inconvenience them if someone goes to print them and won't because they look professional. What should be included? I really should have grabbed my contract. I did not. It should say things like these files are released to them for personal use only. They may order prints, but they may not sell the images. It should say that you retain the copyright to these images. It should say something about not applying, we've talked about this a lot, applying filters or editing the photos in any way. It should talk about social media sharing and referencing back to your business and your website. There are a whole host of things. I have read portions of my contract on previous videos. I'm sorry I don't have it in front of me right now. But those are essentially what you need to put on there. I also put on there that I am not liable for maintaining a backup copy of their files so that if they lose their files and come back to me years later, legally, I don't have to have them, but I do. I talked about that recently as well because I had a client contact me from several years ago that she had lost her files, so I had them. But in there, in the contract, it says that it is highly recommended that the client maintain a backup copy of these files because I'm not going to, even though I do. I don't want to tell them that I have them, but I need to tell them pretty clearly that I don't legally need to keep those. So that is in the contract as well. And I just saw a question posted before I went live about color shifts. So Nikki posted, Sarah posted, any idea what is happening here? When I export from Lightroom, the colors are fine, but when I take it into Photoshop, after making some adjustments, then export the photo. Well, you're actually saving from Photoshop. You're not exporting from Photoshop. It's different. The colors are significantly different. I did not have this issue 2 days ago, so I'm not sure what changed. And then she posted an example. Well, looking at these photos, something definitely did change, and you may not have changed it, but something happened inside of Photoshop. And several people were commenting, and I can see your settings. You want to make sure that your RGB is set appropriately, and that would be sRGB in your working space, and it looks like that is set right in your options. It's under color settings and preferences. And, oh, there it is. You have it converting, found it. Maybe you've already talked about this in the thread and I didn't see it, but your convert to profile, you have your source space is Pro Photo RGB, false, needs to be sRGB. You have your destination space as working CMYK. No. As photographers, we don't work in CMYK. That's for designers. That all needs to be sRGB. That's why it shifted so much. CMYK, Pro Photo RGB, Adobe RGB, and sRGB are all different color spaces, and they overlap. I've seen, maybe I'll look for a diagram. I've seen where they show it very clearly, an illustration of how these color spaces overlap, but they're not all the same. And in fact, sRGB is the smallest color space out of all of them. Pro Photo RGB, Adobe RGB are much larger, but our labs don't use those to print. So if we're printing in sRGB, then you would want to maintain sRGB across everything, because why shift those colors and see things that aren't ever going to print? It'll actually just confuse you. CMYK stands for cyan, magenta, yellow, and black versus RGB, which is red, green, blue. They have different channels. They map differently. CMYK is for designers or people who work commercially, say they're printing an ad or a book for makeup, and those colors need to be perfect. That would be CMYK. It's a different color gamut. So we work as photographers primarily in sRGB because it is the lowest common denominator, and that's what happens on output in print. There are some rare exceptions to this, but for the most part, we're working in sRGB. And okay, so you went on to say you're not sure how it got changed, but It did, so I'm sure you'll have that fixed. Do you guys have it? You're welcome, Diana. Thank you. Thank you for saying so. Hey, I think we're all set. We didn't have a ton of questions for the Q&A this week. What's up? I'm here to help you, so make sure you post your questions, and I'll see you in the next video.